That's a really good course. So they got to run the ball. And the reason they got to run the ball is not just to remain physical, because it suits who they are, it keeps the pressure off Patrick Mahomes. But if you were to ask me what the difference between MVS and Hollywood Brown are, because you kind of want to, okay, you had a fast guy. Here's another fast guy. Probably not a number one, but he's closer to one than MVS was. Here's the difference. He's got a full route tree. You can stick him in the slot. When you're a defensive back and you're flat-footed and you've got Worthy or you've got Hollywood Brown running right at you and you're not sure what's happening, and Andy Reid's got a bunch of window dressing, it might be in the flat, it might be pre-snap, it might be play action. If you're flat-footed against this guys, it's going to be 6.
And
he's got 2 of these guys.
7 might be open.
And we haven't even talked about the best tight end in the game.
Yeah.
Big news for you football fans. BetMGM is the presenting sponsor of the Greenlight Podcast. We've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for you listeners each week. If y'all haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code Greenlight, and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code Greenlight. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3, you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code Greenlight when you sign up. Disclaimer, see BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and older only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 4673969. New York, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Arizona, 1-800-327-5050. Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF. Iowa, 1-800-981-0023. Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days, in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code Greenlight and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Been a while.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thanks, appreciate it. Hey, over the break, Waylon was having trouble taking coaching in some athletic thing, and my wife Meg said, you know, you don't have a great chance of going to the NBA with that attitude. And naturally, he was like, well, what are the chances? And she was like, less than 1%. And I'm in the background like, but he got fucking real bent out of shape about it. I had to like give him this whole speech about like how it's really hard to be a pro athlete, you know? And then a week later, we tried to surf behind a boat. Have you seen this?
No.
Where you surf behind a boat?
Wakeboarding?
Wake surfing?
Yeah.
Wake surfing, bro. First try here. Okay. But I'm in the boat watching my wife struggle. Like it's the most she's ever, I mean, like she was getting the shit beat out of her. It was crazy. And Waylon's in the back of the boat. And by like the 7th attempt to get up, he says, "Who's uncoachable now, Mom?" This is like a week later.
That's great.
Oh, it was great. I got up first try. See, the whole thing is when you watch your wife struggle at something like that, that's when you try. If she had gotten up and she was like good at it, I was going to sit in the boat and be like, yeah, I'm tired. You know, that looks easy.
Yeah. It's why you don't want to be the first to get a jump shot up in a pickup game.
Exactly.
You know, you want to see some misses.
I thought that was great from Waylon.
That's terrific.
What did I miss? Did I miss anything? Here, geographically in your life?
I don't know. Since we're in parent corner here.
Holy shit, fuck the summer. Boy, I used to like the summer.
I know.
I don't like it now.
It's intense.
3 kids.
It's intense.
You know?
All right. So our 2-year-old, don't give the 2-year-old a water bottle to go to school.
Yeah, this is funny.
But you have to give the 3-year-old kids a water bottle when they go to school. So we missed that on day one.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching the 3-year-olds from afar for a minute, you know. and the teacher flags me down, and I'm like, who, me? And I'm like, oh gosh, what's happened already? And I walk down the hill, and they're like, she needs a water bottle. And so I go to my car, grab the only water bottle I have, go put it in the classroom, come back, the kids weren't there, and figure no big deal, kind of a hero. And so I text my wife, hey, she needed a water bottle. It's tall and black and in her classroom, but they were gone by the time I got there. No big deal. Then my wife said, okay, I'll pick it up in about an hour. Does it have any specific writing on it? I said, yeah, bet MGM. To which she said, oh dear, which I don't know. And then the water bottle got lost in the shuffle until today when they sent it back home with her.
I don't think your little kid is at risk of signing up for an MGM account. It is really difficult. I just did it. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and I'm glad there is, because I'm going to be throwing some fucking money around this year. It's very secure. It's a very secure way to lose or win money. And we are in lockstep with the men and women at BetMGM. Cannot wait, dude. Cannot wait. There's been a dopamine deficit.
Yeah.
Have you felt it?
Yeah. How about Shang topping Bublik in 5 sets today on the first day of the U.S. Open?
Bublik?
Bublik. Alexander Bublik.
The guy's hooking up, and he just won't get off the titty. It's like 2 hours of just areola. And she's like, Bublik.
Kazakhstani. Stani player.
He doesn't even know the fucking joke. All right. Anyways, yeah, we're back. We're back together.
Talking sports.
And we have a little breakdown pod for you, a little preview pod for you. We are doing the AFC South and West. Don't ask. There's a lot of divisions. There's a lot of, there's only so many days we can squeeze these in. Over the next 2 weeks, we're going to take you on a journey around the NFL. No, you can't say that. Shout out to Around the NFL podcast, which I thought was one of the best podcasts in the game, and inexplicably doesn't exist anymore. I was very, very flattered to hear from some of the floaters, the free agents that are like, where the fuck is my podcast? I met 1 or 2 people that we were talking pods, and they were like, your show kind of reminds us of that show. It's just dudes bullshitting, talking about the games, but also just kind of extrapolating the sidebars. Not extrapolating the sidebars, forcing the sidebars. You know what I mean? We're a big sidebar pod. That was one of my favorite things about Around the NFL. They just had fun with it. So I don't know, popped into my head. I want to shout those guys out. They don't exist anymore. What the fuck? So we'll do our best. If there's any Around the NFL listeners that have stopped in, stick around for the year. Do you want to start in the AFC West or the AFC South?
I'd like to start in the AFC South.
Jesus. That is just no. I mean, I did. To your credit, I did give you 2 options. And you. So, what do you say we work backwards and start with the Titans?
Okay, that's
no. We're not going to do that to people. We will start with the AFC South, and maybe we should be starting with the AFC South because I think the Texans are going to be really good. I think this is a better division than the West, top to bottom. Would anybody disagree? I mean, I feel like the South is kind of interesting.
There are a lot more players in the South, like a lot more teams that could make a
no
run.
Question. I was like, it's 53.
Yeah.
It's the same setup. No, but it's not your bad.
I think it depends on whether or not Anthony Richardson is a great quarterback.
If Anthony Richardson is a good quarterback, even this is like if Anthony Richardson is Minshew, they're going to be a player in this division, right? He's going to do a lot of things Minshew can't. They are maybe the biggest wild card in that division, right? Because you got a guy. Well, let's just fucking start there. I know we were going to do best teams first, but maybe the biggest question mark for me is what happens in Indy. I think obviously Shane Steichen. Let's get this right this year. Shane Steichen. Okay, he's shown he's got the stuff. All right, I'm not worried about him. Not worried about Chris Ballard. This is year 8 for him. Gus Bradley, he's going to let the group rush. They're going to play cover 3. Like, we know what we're getting in the big 3, so to speak, the offensive mastermind, the defensive mastermind, and the GM. Okay. Started last year 5-5, finished 6-3. So they showed some real life, and they were within a throw, possibly, of going to the playoffs. They got to finish that drive, but we all remember the play. 4th down, we're going for it. Minshew's got the look in the flat. He can't make the throw. And as great as he was last year, and it earned him a contract worth up to $15 million guaranteed, which is funny money. I woke up this morning. The first thing I did when I walked in, I was like, "Can y'all make sure Minshew isn't richer than me?" Like, I wouldn't be unhappy if it happened to him, because he's the fucking man. But that's a lot of money, and he earned it last year. I thought he played some good ball. The question is, can Richardson be that game manager when he has to be? He's effectively a rookie. He threw the ball 128 times last year. I went and looked at every throw. And if you're looking for a pattern, good luck. Like, that's the problem. Like, there is no pattern. The mechanics are all over the place.
You sound like Jaws right now.
I do.
I watched every single throw.
Well, it's not as much of a brag when there's only 128.
I guess
so that's the point, is like, there's not a lot to look at. And he's effectively a rookie this year. So I look at somebody going in their rookie year, and, it's unknown how he's going to develop. Now, there were some flashes in the games I saw. Sometimes you'll see the ball down the seam, and you're like, holy shit, that had to be 80 miles an hour. Or he'll get the ball outside the numbers with a lot of zip, but the ball's rising on him, or he's a little bit sporadic. He's kind of spraying on the easy stuff. And I think a lot of it, without having been a quarterback, so I'll text some of my friends who have thrown footballs before or have quarterbacked in the NFL, the mechanics are a little bit off. I mean, it looks like he really opens up that front hip, and I don't know what the fuck that does. Sometimes, like, this is me just Joe fanning it, talking about a quarterback. This is where you and I have a lot in common. Like, I never played the position. It's rocket science to me, a lot of it. But I know that's not how it's supposed to look. And at times I kind of wonder if he's afraid to just let it rip. Like, he's almost too damn strong. And especially on those shorter throws, like, he's kind of like, like me throwing a first pitch, nervous about it.
Yep.
Right. And so I just wonder what the timetable looks like for him and a talented offense, because they've got an all-world running back. They have a bunch of power forwards out there at wide receiver and at tight end. They got Pierce is a guy who might see more bench time this year. He might be coming off the bench, working in some combinations with Pittman, who's their one, Josh Downs, who's dinged right now, and that's where they have their rookie A.D. Mitchell. I love the acronym here, A.D. Mitchell. Okay, he's been playing in the slot, but that's just because Downs is hurt. But they have a really nice group outside. Their tight ends, I mean, for the most part, are big dudes, right? They have one pass catcher, but when you think about Mo Alley Cox and you think about our guy from Virginia, Jelani Woods, who's actually injured for a couple months, you think 12 personnel, you think running the football. I think with Anthony Richardson, it's going to be about trying to, as we go down this very unknown timeline of his development, trying to make it manageable for him. And I know he can do the RPO thing. I know you can get the quarterback run game going. And interestingly, talking to Chris Ballard and hearing from Anthony Richardson, you would think coming out of last year, they'd all be like, yep, we want him to get down. It's like Josh Allen in Buffalo. Hey, if you slide, we're going to put the backup quarterback in a jockstrap for practice. Like make it fun. He doesn't seem to have that mindset. They don't seem to have that mindset. Chris Ballard was like, hey, we drafted him because of certain skill sets. We want to encourage him to use those skill sets. So I think the most interesting thing, Make, is like a year ago, what did you and I think about Jordan Love's career? Not much.
No.
We didn't know shit, and a whole calendar year later, this guy's the highest paid quarterback in football. And for 8 to 10 weeks, it looked like he might be not the guy there, depending on how you looked at it. And I thought, give him a shot, because I saw some of the top end stuff that he did. But over an 8-week period, 8-10 weeks, this guy made all this money and is now the future of that franchise. So you just don't know how this is going to look. It could be week 6 and Anthony Richardson looks like garbage, and he still might end up being the guy.
Well, week 2 last year, Richardson and Minshew both played, but Colts went to Houston and won 31-20.
That's right. And when you watch his throws, you're seeing that's the game he got knocked out, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
You watch any of these games, like there were 2 games where he had a bunch of throws and, like he racked up some yardage, but there wasn't anything consistent that they were doing. They'd catch you on a big play, like he'd make one throw that would flash and then he's back spraying the ball a little bit. I guess the whole point is this team's going to go as far as, to your point, the quarterback takes them. And, we haven't even gotten to the defense. I think that's talented group and the whole thing, but how QB friendly can we make the offense early, especially when you talk about a team that's in this division? They're going to get Houston, Green Bay, Chicago, Pittsburgh out of the gate. They're at home for a few of those games, and that's really big for mechanics, young quarterback, offensive lineman. And by the way, their offensive line, a lot of continuity there. I think Raymond got better last year. Fries is probably the weak link, relatively speaking, but the tackles have played well. You got a Hall of Famer at guard. You've got a center you like. The right side of the line is going to struggle with games. But if they can run the football and Richardson just doesn't turn the ball over a fuck ton, I think they can be a pretty good group. They have 4 of 6 divisional games before week 9. So it's really important they get off to a hot start. And I think I'm looking at the offense. Hey, again, defense, group full of big bodies. The corners are tall. The defensive linemen are tall. Fucking they bring in Raekwon Davis because he's like 6'7", and he's backing up another 6'7" guy. They just have a really good group, and they added Latu to the group. And I would love to run this tape on YouTube. Latu looks like he knows exactly what the fuck he's doing, as is evidenced by him playing 16 plays in the preseason. I think they know what they got, and they want to see him turn it on when the games start.
It's a juicy sack total, too. 7.5 plus 115.
I love a juicy sack total. All right. And
Chris.
What?
Come on, man.
All right. Well, so it is juicy. It's minus 150. Fuck, dude.
No, you're right.
Anyways, I watched him the first game, and I'm like, this kid knows what he's doing. Then you watch him against Cincinnati, and everybody's like, look over here at Anthony Richardson, who, by the way, looked really good for a drive and then threw a pick 6 that they say was a miscommunication. He missed some other balls. You're paying attention to that. I want you to look at this kid. I mean, he sunk 3 chopped clubs in like 8 reps, okay? He knows what he's doing. And then he would miss on his chopped club, and this is something I love to see out of a young guy. Oh, my speed move did not work. Well, I'm going to stick my foot in the ground, and I'm going to turn to power. And a lot of guys are a little late doing that. A lot of guys will just keep running. He knows just when to do it. I'm really excited about watching him. And Kwity Paye, although people kind of over the first 2 years built up this disappointed in the guy. He had 8.5 last year. That's a really good year for him. And if he can take the next step, they have a really solid group. So linebackers, we love Zaire Franklin, speed, those guys, fun players, good podcasters, the whole thing. That's not a shot. I like those guys, but it's not like they're like a game-changing group at linebacker. I think Zaire has been a machine, but it's going to be about the secondary. Ballard talked about playing young guys last year on purpose and knowing that he was gambling with his personnel. Like he just knew we got to throw him out there. And I kind of like that about Chris Ballard. He's just no bullshit. And he's just kind of like, hey man, we just took a fucking chance and it didn't work out at times, acknowledged some rough moments, but the optimism for the group he has this year, taking the next step, is palpable. And you get Kenny Moore back. They got big corners, press bail guys. Like we'll see. This is a team whose ceiling and floor is hard to reconcile, And if we were going to do a layup line, accuracy by the Cure.
Oh, good.
This is all about accuracy this year. Just put the ball in the right place when you're supposed to put the ball in the right place, Anthony, and we might have something.
I picked Ain't Back Yet by Kenny Chesney because we just haven't yet seen it.
No, we have not seen it.
We haven't seen it.
No, we have not seen it.
Plus 325. That's third best odds to win the division behind Jacksonville and, of course, Houston. 8.5 is the win total.
And like you said, though, they swing this division either way.
Yeah, the ceiling heights are like 12 feet.
Yeah.
It just might be on the floor or up on the ceiling. A lot of variability.
Some 1770 ceilings.
Yeah.
Could be the low end of this thing.
Yeah.
So, but I just look at this team and I say they're going to be fun either way because Anthony Richardson's fun. Hope he can stay healthy. You wanted to ask me what about this team? The biggest gaping hole? That's what you're going to ask about, the biggest gaping hole?
What is the largest, most gaping hole for the Colts?
I would say if they could wave their magic wand and fix one thing right now, or like to fortify one thing right now, it would be the secondary. I think it's a really important room, especially in that division. You're going to go to Houston and see bro. Houston has 2 waves of starting wide receivers. like we're going to get there. They're going to be fucking fun. And oh, by the way, the quarterback's real good. And Trevor Lawrence just got all this money. Like Doug Peterson's an offensive guru who's won a Super Bowl. Like this division's not going to be easy week to week, and we didn't even get to the Titans.
Hey, dog. Houston at Indy, week 1. I have the BetMGM line.
You want me to guess it?
Guess that spread.
3.5. Houston's favored on the road.
1.5. Houston favored.
Something to that.
One of those week 1 games.
Well, there's also a matchup thing. You get in these divisions and certain matchups are tougher and people know it. I mean, so we'll see. I don't know. Healthy Anthony Richardson. Who do you want to do next?
The Jags.
Oh, God. Are we doing this? And this just the Jags.
They're right there with them. Plus 300 to win the division.
You're right.
This is the most.
You looking at this? Oh, this is your team?
Yeah, just kind of like,
Why? I think they could be better. Not that they were great down the stretch last year, but healthy last year. There was a point last year when they beat fucking Buffalo in London that we were like, oh, this team's really good. And they played Kansas City close at home. Now, of course, they could barely score because they couldn't get on the same page in the passing game. It's like a bunch of the same situational football problems plagued this team. If you pull up their schedule last year, okay, and of course, this is Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke, respectively, years 3 and 4, with a big addition of Ryan Nielsen on defense that I'm excited about. Got to shout out Prez Taylor. He's the offensive coordinator. But the whole thing is, I watched them last year, and I thought they were plenty good to go on a bit of a run. I'm not saying they were like a contending team. They finished the year, I think, 3-6. They started the year 6-2. Okay, Trevor's health had something to do with that for sure. There were games where I was like, for sure, he's banged up, and he was trying to gut it out and play like the Saints game. Hats off to you, going out there and playing. My dumbass was on the other side. Okay, you see what kind of memory I have? All right, my dumbass was on the other side that night. My dumbass was on the wrong side of this team a lot last year late because I thought they were better than they were, and they kind of fooled me. And I even took the live over win total, and then he started getting hurt. And then you watch like the Baltimore game, mate. Do you remember the Baltimore game?
Yeah.
It felt like they were right there, and people were laughing at me for saying they were right there. Most of them Baltimore fans who hadn't yet realized what I was saying all along about the team, which is that they're not perfect. You can beat them if you play good ball. And Jacksonville had them down there in prime time at home and just made too many mistakes. The Cleveland game,
that was the Baltimore game was the game where Trevor just sort of dropped the ball.
Bro, he's just dropping the fucking football.
Yeah.
And so, he gets a big deal, and I know that's how the way this thing goes. I think they actually might have gotten better. I'll tell you why. Because the Calvin Ridley thing just wasn't working.
Yeah.
They were force feeding him outside. It didn't feel like it felt redundant, like they had some redundant skill sets. Obviously, it's a good thing to get rid of Zay Jones because he's starting the year suspended. Now, I don't know what Jacksonville knew about that, but I'm just saying you've got Gabe Davis, who everybody's been waiting for him to have another game like he had against the Chiefs in the playoffs. You had Armstead on defensive side of the football. I mean, I haven't even – Devin Duvernay, he's a returner. They bring a guy like him in. But I haven't even gotten to Mitch Morse, who's a big deal. I think this is the best offensive line that Jacksonville's had in Trevor's career. I mean, like Cam Robinson, Ezra Cleveland, Mitch Morse, Brandon Sheriff, and Anton Harrison. That's a good group. That's a really good group. I'm just putting this together. I mean, obviously, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr. is a huge swing player. Mm-hmm. If Brian Thomas Jr. can play, then they have a solidified group. It's kind of like looking up at Keon Coleman in Buffalo. It's like, well, it's easy to say, well, I don't see any number one here. I mean, Christian Kirk's the number one, but not a spectacular one,
and
right?
The odds project Thomas Jr. as their number one with the highest projected receiving yards at 775.
And we've been hearing good things out of camp. I mean, Nolan, you're on the line. Do you remember anything about him coming out? Like comparable player?
No, nothing specific to a comp. I think the profile on him coming out was all the tools, developmental type, and I think that's where people have been pleased in the preseason is the route running has been pretty impressive.
Yeah, and that's great. Like, I think with a non, like last year, the sum of the parts just didn't add up. and the injuries exacerbated the whole thing, and they just started fucking making mistakes. It felt like I looked at Doug and was like, man, this is my coach. That's my coach.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not playing disciplined football, and to me, it ends up falling on the quarterback. He's got to play better, but he's got better pieces around him. Everybody's swimming in the right lanes, so to speak. We've heard that before. Okay. Evan Ingram, your guy.
Yeah, well, he did learn how to catch last year.
I mean, he's
had a great year.
Can you send him to LA to teach Quentin Johnson how to catch?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These things can happen. So I don't know, man. I look at Gabe Davis pressure to live up to the contract, Brian Thomas Jr. pressure to be that guy for them. Like, if they can do those things in the wide receiver room, this is going to be a pretty good team. And Tank Bigsby's a guy we barely saw last year. And when we did, we were like, why aren't we seeing more of him? So Mac Jones, solid backup, right? Solid, like, I bet you Mac Jones at some point might get another shot, as fucked up as that is.
Wasn't he from Jacksonville?
I think he might be from Jacksonville.
Literally at home.
He went to one of those schools that used to kick our ass in baseball when we'd go down there and stay at the Sea Turtle Inn in Jacksonville and get our ass kicked by like Bishop Kenny and Bowles. Where did he go to high school? He probably went to one of those fucking schools. Bowles.
There you go.
There you go. So anyways, he's at home. He's probably happy to be like, you talk about people that you feel bad for in the beginning of their careers. Like, it's hard for me to feel bad for a guy that kicks people in the dick on purpose. Like, I know he's not like punching babies, so I'm not making that sound like it's a big deal. But, as a defensive lineman, he's not my favorite quarterback, but I can also feel empathy for the cat. The cat played for Joe Judge and Matt Patricia. That'll ruin your career when those guys are your offensive coordinators. And I love Matty P, the coach and the guy, but not an offensive coordinator. Like, these things can affect guys. So I'm really excited to see them have I think it's going to do wonders for Mac Jones's career, like to work with Doug and just the pressure being off him. I talked about that O-line. The D-line might be one of the best in the league.
How do you think, we have a little bit of distance now, Trayvon Walker was a surprise 1-1.
Yeah.
How's the trajectory of that career looking now that we have a little bit of tape?
It's good, man. Like, he's going to get compared to Hutchinson, who has become a top 10 rusher. Like, that's what he is, and that's a damn good group to be in. And also, his tool bag is just full, man. Like, he can go inside, he can go outside. Trayvon's doesn't have, so to speak, as flashy a route tree. He's more of a pure power player who's working on trying to figure out how to get the edge. And having gone through that in my career in a not a dissimilar situation where the first year or two, they're like, well, he had like 8 or 10 sacks last year, and I got to say, although you can explain away a lot of production and tell me why it doesn't mean as much. I mean, like, that's what we go off of. And there were games where he was doing a lot of little things right. Think about that Houston game. I was very impressed with him in that game. A lot of the little things he did in the run game, in the pass game, affecting quarterbacks, running backs so that other people eat. And I think he's going to be that type of disruptive player who's earning the respect of the guys in the building. Like, for sure, when I talk to Doug Peterson about him, he really likes him. And, as a guy that, like, when you're picked 1 of 1 as a defensive end, man, that's a lot of pressure. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being 1 of 1. So I look at this guy and I look at this defensive line and I say, well, fuck, you added Eric Armstead. You've got Josh Hines Allen. You've got depth pieces like Roy Robertson Harris and guys that have been there a little bit. Like, and I've liked their group. And now our guy's taking a step forward, I'm hoping, Trayvon Walker, who I checked out next to at the Super Bowl. Me and him, register, 2 people in the store. I'm checking out next to this guy.
6'5", 272.
He was definitely bigger than me.
Okay.
But I was like, hey, man, what's up? Like, you're okay. I used to play for Doug Peterson. He was like, all right, cool, man. And then I'm pretty sure he like Googled me and he was like, holy shit, we're like the same guy. Like, I should fucking, and then he followed me on Instagram like 10 minutes later. But at first he was like, who the fuck is this guy? I'm really rooting for the guy, man. Everybody talks good stuff about him. And, when they leave somebody for dead and they compare him to a guy like Aiden, who's a fucking bona fide stud, this guy can play too. He's a different kind of player. This front's going to be pretty good. I'm excited about this front, just as I am looking at their offensive line. their linebacking core is solid. Muma's a good player. You know, the guy from Yale, Aluakon, he's a tackling machine, really smart player. The dude from Utah, Devin Lloyd, bigger physical cat, right? Like, it's a mixed bag in coverage, but I like the group. And then the secondary is going to be better. I think it's going to be better. Nolan, what do you think about the secondary?
Yeah, secondary is going to be better with Tyson Campbell's a stud at one outside corner spot. It's a good safety duo with Cisco and Darnell Savage, and then they add Ronald Darby,
My guy.
as functional starter. Yeah, he's definitely an upgrade over what they had there.
Yeah, so it's honestly a solid group. When I look at like the Colts, there's a few question marks. Like, I don't have the question marks I have. Like, even with Trevor's question marks, like, he's more established than Anthony Richardson.
And yet,
Their secondary is better. The D-line's probably as good. You could make a case for that. You know, like, I think Jacksonville is going to be better than people think. You get these bad tastes in your mouth about teams and quarterbacks, and, you know, this league, it changes year to year.
I think you can nail this one. Trevor's started 50 games as an NFL quarterback. What's his record?
25-25.
20-30.
Jeez.
So we get told every year, hey, this team's going to be capable.
Yeah.
And then the wins just
No, I
back
understand. I understand. I take the Urban Meyer year out of it.
Okay.
So if you take the Urban Meyer year out of it, what's his record?
better.
Better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would take, and I listen, because I've been accused of being hard on Trevor. I'm not trying to kid glove him here when I say he was banged up last year. And Urban Meyer, fucking prime Joe Montana might have struggled there. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. What's your layup line song for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Dude looks like a lady, Aerosmith, because Trevor Lawrence has long hair, man.
Oh, and really good skin.
Or we could do, by the way, just a team player. After he got there with child, like, it's everything his lovely wife wanted him to do, right? Like, every photo shoot known to man, they're taking over the team social account. Like, he's just a team player. The other thing is, like, fucking Leonard Skinner's from Jacksonville. You know, don't ask me no more questions. That's the second layup line. We're on to the next team.
Oh, good. All
right, so
there, do either of these two have a chance to compete for the division?
we haven't gotten to. I do think the Jags have a chance to compete for the division.
Okay.
But that's only because, like, you just don't know for sure. Like, the Houston Texans, and that's who we should talk about next before we go back to the Titans and talk about
Agreed.
them last. The Texans, man, it's one of those things that it's like the gambler in me starts to creep in as the analyst here, where it's like, this is too juicy. By the way, minus 105 to win the AFC South. Minus 200 to make the playoffs. What do I not know about minus 105 to win the AFC?
Well, they're starting 0-1.
But when you look at it, they are a team, and I think the Texans, I just want to get this out in the open. I might have been before the public, but I am with the public in that I think this team can compete for the whole thing. Okay, I don't know if the public thinks that, but I've been thinking that since late last year. Give this team a year. And had they walked into Kansas City last year in the playoffs, I think they could have played with the Chiefs. I think they ran into a buzzsaw playing against the Ravens is a bad matchup. Okay. But this team grew up a lot last year. That quarterback, you're going to tell me that smoke and mirrors? Like, I went through a lot of, like, impressive rookie seasons to see what would happen next over the last 20 years. And for the most part, when a rookie quarterback plays well, he plays well the second year of the team. Of the best rookie years, right? Like, most of those guys came back and looked like the same guy next year. Baker Mayfield had a fantastic year, came back, that team sucked the next year, okay? Robert Griffin III looked incredible, got hurt. But for the most part, when you see a guy out of the gate and you're like, this fucking guy can play. How many times can he not play?
A lot of these previews turn into reading rosters or schedules, and I don't want to do that. But
Just
with
do
the
it.
Matrix handy, weeks 9 through 11 at Jets, home Lions, at Cowboys, and then weeks 15 through 17, Dolphins, home, at Chiefs, home for Ravens. So the second half is
It's tough.
Is tough.
It's tough, but you said the Cowboys, so there's one winnable game.
Yeah.
All right, but
Wait for our NFC East preview.
I'm gonna go House of the Rising Sun should be the layup line because they could be in New Orleans, bro. I'm just gonna say, and that, I mean, honestly though,
Nice reference.
tell me, tell me though, who for sure can't they beat?
That is a song about a gambler, like
Going to and losing, which
Losing.
is probably what would happen. They probably go there and lose to the Lions. Okay, and I'd probably bet the Texans or something, and that would be me in the House of the Rising Sun. Okay, but I think they might be there, and it's just off the top of my head when I think about New Orleans songs. But I think when you look at Stroud again, do you have a franchise quarterback? Check, dude. You might need to see what fate has in store for this team in year 2, but whatever happens to CJ Stroud this year, I still know he can play ball.
and he's on a rookie deal.
And he's on a fucking rookie deal. You upgrade at so many positions. You go Mixon. Okay, I love Singletary. Mixon's
Giant.
28 years old. Fucking 1,000-yard rusher. You know, he
really good.
He fits what they do. They're really impressed with how he catches the ball in the backfield.
Yep.
Right? We heard it from Slowick, who was great when he came on the show. They bring in Diggs, who to me, that's a vote of confidence in the second-year quarterback and the kind of guy he is. It's just like, well, hey, this didn't work out for Josh Allen. Bring him down here. Our guy's going to be able to bring him into the fold. And I also think what's interesting, and I alluded to this earlier, Diggs, Collins, who just got paid, Tank Dell, who survived a gunshot wound. Not only that, could run like a couple of days later. Like things are just breaking right for this team. Like that's a big stroke of luck, and that's bigger than football. But you've got those three guys. You have Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, and then your backups, quote unquote, Noah Brown, Mechie, and Woods. And we got to asking this question: if they sell somebody at the deadline, who would you sell?
Yeah. Word today is Mechie is teams are coming after Mechie. Hey, you're not going to need yourselves a Mechie.
That's a buy low thing, right? You know, everybody wants that fast guy that they can turn into a route runner and a receiver. I would say sell Woods, and I mean no disrespect, but then you're turning the wide receiver room over to Diggs.
Yeah.
That's the one thing to me, and I'm not saying Diggs is a bad guy. I'm just saying I think about like Robert Woods is that guy that like when there's two vets in a room, I've been in rooms where there's one old guy, and if he's not the right guy, that room can take on his personality. And there's nothing wrong with Diggs, but you don't want everybody acting like Diggs. You want everybody practicing like Diggs, competing like Diggs. But when it comes to like Diggs has a bad day and he's in there motherfucking the OC because he's a vet and he can, you also need that vet that's like, all right, man, but maybe this is why we did it this way. Or like, hey, young blood, you just do your job. All right. Don't listen to what Diggs is over here screaming about. Like when you lose a guy like that, the room changes, and I just don't know. So
that's a great point.
When you got 6 fucking receivers, chances are somebody's going to come calling.
Not to mention RB2, Damian Pierce.
Who's falling off the face of the earth. People are talking about like he's going to be a surprise cut.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to know that much about what's going on in preseason. Okay. I catch up on the back end. I watch what I watch. I watch the players I watch. So somebody could explain to me what's happening to Damian Pierce that we're talking about him getting cut, because that rookie year, I was like, man, this guy's going to be a workhorse for a long time. Okay. Tunsil, Kenyon Green, who's back. He's the guy who forced Titus Howard inside last year. Juice Scruggs. Jared Patterson might push him. Shaq Mason and Titus Howard, who I just mentioned. That's a good offensive line, dude. And the guys are in the right places. We heard Slowick talk about how much he appreciated what Titus Howard did. Kicking inside. I think he's going to be great back outside. And I think this offense is just, we don't need to overanalyze it. They're kind of scary.
Schultz is underrated too. He's a good tight end.
Good player. Like that guy.
Fine player.
Yeah.
Looks like Chris Long.
Oh, yeah?
Look at him a little bit. Not in that picture so much. I was told he looks like Chris Long. Look at it. He's got butt chin, too.
He's no Larry Nance.
He's no Larry Nance. But white guys with beards? No, we don't look like each other at all. You guys are racist. Whoever sent me that. Anyways, defense, the edge guys. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. Love it. Derek Barnett, third end. Love it. Love Derek Barnett. Love the way he came on last year. It was one of my favorite moments of last year, sitting on the couch watching this guy succeed. Love the guy. And then Mario Edwards, Fatukasi inside. Settle was a big pickup. Azeez Al-Shaair, another upgrade to me. And we just glossed over Danielle Hunter because I've been talking about him all fucking offseason, right? The guy is a premier rusher. Nobody talks about him. As much as you like Grenard, who's become our boy now. Grenard's like our guy, dude. He busted in the interview with Harrison Phillips and dapping us up. He's been on the show. I love the guy. And he's a great player. This guy, Danielle Hunter, has been doing what Grenard did for a while, right? And so this is a guy that he's within an inch of being 18, 20 sacks any given year, I feel like. And
Might be free money then. His sack total's 10.5.
Oh, this is one of the most free money to me, at least, with the coverage, and I'll get there in a second. This guy's an upgrade. And you upgraded over a guy that most teams are like, fuck, we lost Grenard. What are we going to do? Okay. You upgraded at linebacker. You lose Cashman, but you got Christian Harris, one of the best tacklers in the league. You've got Azeez Al-Shaair, a guy who's been with D'Amico and is rangy as fuck. Okay. So I really like this defense. Toto, good player.
Alabama.
Bama guy, right? Here's where I get really excited talking about the Texans. You want to know what's going on? Read the quotes in preseason. I'm telling you, that's the way to know. Like, cut through the BS, study what coaches are saying, what they're not saying. You and I both know what I'm talking about. McVay talked glowingly about Texans secondary coming out of joint practices. And he's a guy, McVay, to me, that like if he could do TV while he coached, he would, because he's so fucking good at it. He came on the show and I'm like, bro, like it's unfair how good you are at this. Like I just wanted to run through a wall. So I think when he gets up there, he'll tell you the truth. He wants to tell you, he wants to educate. He talked about the Texans secondary. He talked about safety play. He talked about, he's a big fan of Jimmy Ward. He missed 7 games last year, finished on the injured reserve. He talked about how good Petrie was in coverage in camp. Like there's a buzz around Petrie because last year he was up and down in man coverage, but he was like a do-it-all guy. And they gave up a bunch of explosives like that. When Nelson and Stingley were together, and Nelson's gone now, they did pretty well. But they had some injuries. They gave up some explosives. Like I said, Petrie struggled in man coverage, but McVay came out of practice like these guys are going to be really good. They're going to be a pain in the ass to deal with. And as good as Stingley's been, kind of quietly, like fucking really good. Like people don't talk about Stingley like that. Stingley tweeted about Lassiter, the guy they replaced Nelson with, and said he's different.
Yeah.
Which to me, it's 2 words, but again, it's a player tweeting about somebody. Players don't tweet shit about players who aren't going to be really good. You know what I mean?
Rounder from Georgia.
They like him. So I get excited, looking at this secondary and saying if they can all stay healthy. And they got solid depth. Guys that play like CJ Henderson and Jeff Okudah have played football in this league. They were high picks. I like having those guys around. So a team that can contend, in my opinion. We don't need to overcomplicate it. We don't need to, hyperbolize. Is that a word? Hyperbolize this motherfucker here.
Yeah.
We just need to say that they could be there at the end of the year.
Here's a song for you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't Blink by Kenny Chesney for the Houston Texans.
Keep it up.
I mean, Collins, Dell, now Diggs. Don't blink, man.
Oh.
Now, also, a few different meanings. It can go fast.
Wait till we get to the Chiefs. I might use that one.
Okay.
All right.
I don't like the old English H. I don't like the alt logo. I like the unis now.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
That one H, though, I can't get down with.
And by the way, we're going to get to Lions in the preview proper.
Yeah.
Wear the Honolulu blue uniform every time.
Of course.
Keep this shit out of here.
Yes.
That shit is cheeks.
The road unis that have Detroit on
Yeah, or just, it's not too late to be like, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Delete.
Yeah, Control, Alt, Delete.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And by the way, D'Amico Ryans, whose name we barely said, turned out to be one of the better coaches in the league last year. And fucking knows defense. So upgrades. Oh, you know what? Maybe let me upgrade you. Remember that song?
We got there.
Let me upgrade you.
That's good. All right, Tennessee Titans. Their win total is 6.5. Would you be more surprised? Would you be more surprised if they were 9-8 or 4-13?
9-8. But sometimes I get something in my head and I'm like, fuck, I want to pull for the Titans. Maybe part of that is because Denard Wilson's a guy that I spent time in NFL buildings with. Maybe part of it is that Will Levis has inexplicably come around. You know, like I did not think I'd like Mayo Man. I say this a lot. Like, look back at last year when he started taking the snaps and look at the excitement, which part of that's always like, I hate to bring it up, but when Sleepy Joe was like, I'm out, everybody was like, yeah, we have always loved Kamala, myself included. All right. And it's the same thing with Will Levis showing up and D Hop's like, fuck yeah, anybody but this old guy who can barely throw the ball anywhere but down the seam. You know, like, I'll take anybody who can get me the ball outside the numbers. I don't care if he mixes coffee and mayonnaise together. There was just a palpable excitement when you watch the games on TV that people think this guy's like a dog. They think he's scrappy. I don't think they've given him the franchise QB treatment yet, where it's like, okay, this is the guy of the future. Although Amy Strunk Adams, Adam Strunk, Hines Allen.
Strunk.
Okay. I get it with her because there's an Amy Adams who's an actress.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Josh Allen. He's like, man, I can't be fucking getting conflated with this big white guy in Buffalo. Got to differentiate. But Amy Adams Strunk,
You got it.
when she took over, she was like, hey, we got all this shit going for us, including a franchise quarterback. And I was like, we were both like, me and Nolan were like, huh? Like, I guess we've decided.
Malik Willis.
Yeah, Malik Willis, who I'm never giving up on. Okay?
Okay.
Tank for Malik Willis, I think I said at one point. I think the guy's scrappy. And as much as I can like a coach who just came in, I like the coach. As much as I can like a coach who's never called plays before, I like the coach. It helps when he brings his dad to coach the offensive line, and his dad happens to be an offensive line guru. And it doesn't hurt the additions they made on defense, but I think they could be like scrappy and exciting. And if Will Levis is better than we think, although preseason's been up and down, they could be 9-8. Like, but here's what has to happen. They got to figure out how to use these guys at wide receiver, right? Like, we know what D Hop's into, but Boyd and Ridley, again, getting into that like redundant skill set thing, like who's going to play in the slot. Okay. Boyd's been a slot guy through his whole career. Ridley isn't such an outside guy. That's maybe what we found out last year, unless like he's like, oh, in year 2, I'll figure it out. I like Okonkwo.
Yeah.
The rack on that guy.
Yeah.
I mean the run after
No,
catch.
I got you. Yeah. This is a really bad fantasy team.
Wait till we get to the Chargers.
Now, there are only 10 to 12 teams in the fantasy league.
Wait till we get to the Chargers.
But Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, D Hop, Tyler Boyd, Okonkwo.
I'll tell you what, Tony Pollard might get force fed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I would draft him. Still don't know how that works, bro.
I know.
I got to see Romeo Dobbs in person when we were in
Did you tell him?
No, because like we were behind the yellow line. Like we were with the media, but he was like standing there a bunch. And like I know Wicks, and then at the end I'm like, yo, Wicks, tell Dobbs we love him. Like, you know, like we were standing right there. You know, I was hoping he was just ride by on his bicycle. I stood out there like a loser for 5 to 7 minutes, just hoping.
You were like Kevin Costner in Draft Day for Romeo Dobbs.
Still have not seen the movie.
I haven't either.
Oh god,
I just swung. Oh,
I was like, Costner stood outside by the bicycle
you were
line.
the GM who drafted him. You know?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Now all he's got to do is become draftable in those early rounds. Prove me right. But the Titans, man, like they bring in Latham, who I've already talked about. This guy, 50s number at tackle, no gloves, Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Okay. And he's playing next to Skoronski. Those guys are going to have a lot of fun together. These deuce blocks, I mean, they are flattening motherfuckers. They are just, it's public transportation over there. Whatever version of whatever they have in Nashville, like SEPTA, they need to make a t-shirt for these motherfuckers. Honestly, when they run through the tunnel, they need to go.
Broadway.
They need to run together.
Popular street in Nashville.
Well, I don't know what they want to call these guys, but these guys are going to put some people on their asses. Left tackle, left guard, Cushenberry at center. Right side's a bit more of a question mark, but got enough to be scrappy offensively. I saw this team go down to Miami and beat those guys in prime time last year, and that was just on the strength of being scrappy. Let's see if that Vrabel kind of thing carries over personality wise with this group. I think with the offense, you see a lot of gun run, spread. Like, look at Cincinnati and look at their offense. Mixon used to be back there right next to Joe Burrow, and it was gap scheme, some zone, but like, I think they can run some gap scheme stuff to marry the best of both worlds here and really come downhill on motherfuckers. But the problem is the running backs are more out of the backfield guys, right? Like edge of the defense, outside zone, like stretch for, Pollard scares me if I'm on defense, like him getting on the edge, and then Spears out of the backfield. They're fun. It just feels a little bit like they're working it out. And on defense, I can't wait to see Denard Wilson, man. Probably an odd front, but, we've already seen them because I sat down to watch Tavondre Sweat play because I was just like, what's this big motherfucker look like? I saw him in a rep in practice, and it's easy to fall in love with somebody on a cell phone video, like one rep in practice. But I don't just swipe right. I like to see more pictures, I like to check out the LinkedIn if I can, if I were single. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
If you were.
If I were.
But the point is, like, I need to see more. It's like I'm not on social media. They're like, oh, Sweat. He just fucking buried a guy in one-on-one pass rush. I think if they run gap scheme at this fucking guy, it's gonna be a pile of bodies.
Yeah.
But side to side, like the fast zone stuff, he's still learning, and I haven't seen him like figure out pass rush to this point. I'm excited to see him though in real game action because he's going to be lining up next to Jeffrey Simmons and Sebastian Joseph Day, who's a good solid vet. They're going to help this guy get to where he needs to be if he's going to go there. And you've got Arden Key and Harold Landry outside, like, some pieces. Shane Ray off of like a hiatus, a CFL trip, Buffalo trip. Didn't even know he was still in the league. And I'm not saying that dismissively. I think good on him getting back on the horse. That's pretty cool. You think about a guy who like is out of the league and then comes back like that. Doesn't happen a lot, especially with younger players who aren't like superstars. I think they got a lot better in the secondary. This is why they excite me, because L'Jarius Sneed, enough said. Awuzie, another great cover guy. Diggs, Hooker, good safety play, and McCreary's solid, scrappy nickel, dude. Like they've got a good group.
Hooker, Diggs, Sweat.
Close. I was thinking about it.
It's preseason for all of us,
I think it's more Sweat, Hooker.
That's not bad. That's pretty good.
If they're going to stand next to each other.
Yep.
I'll find somebody and I'll get them together. Yeah. But I think what the one question mark is, where's the edge rush coming from? It's not the one question mark, but Landry, he's had some injuries, but he's also had some really good production. Don't undersell this guy. Like, he can play, and don't undersell the prospect of them creating a lot of pressure. This is Denard Wilson coming from Baltimore. He's going to create pressure. When you look at Baltimore last year, and I'm not saying he's going to be McDonald or do things exactly like him, but we said, where's it coming from?
Yep.
And all they did was hit the fucking quarterback.
How does this work? How does a player be excellent like Jeffrey Simmons, and yet everybody talks about him being under the radar and underrated, which I guess he is, and yet the production is there every year?
Market.
He's only 27.
Market.
Team
I guess
quality.
it's market.
Market. Team quality and market.
Yeah, I like that guy a lot.
I love him. It's the same thing we talk about with Hunter, and Minnesota's been relevant, but look how small that market is. Like, if Hunter's playing in fucking LA or New York, he's got a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look on Pro Football Reference, he probably does have a nickname. It's a fun game. Go look at your favorite player and learn all the nicknames you didn't know they had. Pro Football Reference. Anyways, that's going to be an interesting division in that there's some teams in the middle that could make things a lot harder week to week for every team in this division. If the Titans are scrappy and the Colts are a 500 or better team, like this is a fun division, top to bottom. And his nickname is he doesn't have a fucking nickname.
None for Daniil, none for Jeffrey.
I bet you most people couldn't tell you he went to LSU or that he was born in Jamaica.
I didn't know he went to LSU.
So, I mean, like, this is a guy he's got how many sacks in his career? 87.
That's a ton.
He's how old? 28, 29?
29, almost 30.
He's going to be at 120. Okay, like those are numbers that you look at and say, you know, they didn't put Simeon Rice in the Hall of Fame, but this guy actually plays the run. He really does. You see him beat up a tight end. We were talking to somebody about that last week when we went to Minnesota. The guy really does it all. So interesting division.
Any layup line song for the Tennessee Titans?
Oh, for the Titans? Mayonnaise
Pass.
off Siamese Dream, Smashing Pumpkins.
Last place.
It's actually a pretty good song.
By someone.
You think they're going last place? Spoiler
Yeah.
alert for our big
I think so.
prediction show in a week.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that you trying to mind fuck me?
I don't know. Hey, you want to talk about the AFC West?
Yeah, let's get into the.
Producer of
The
the
Super Bowl?
two-time Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs?
Doesn't it feel like 5-time?
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to add up either. They have the quarterback
Yeah. They got the coach,
and the coach,
and they got maybe one of the best D coordinators of this century.
Spags. I think if Spag were offered a head job, he'd be like, I'm all right.
No,
now."
because I think that's what being the head coach in St. Louis does.
Yeah, right.
You're like never again,
Yeah.
dude. That was fun.
Yep. This is
But
a little more fun.
I don't like sleeping on my couch and living in fear every day or coaching players like Chris Long. As you've heard, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for you listeners each week. If y'all haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code GREENLIGHT, and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code GREENLIGHT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3, you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code GREENLIGHT when you sign up. Disclaimer, see BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and older only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 4673969. New York, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Arizona, 1-800-327-5050. Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF. Iowa, 1-800-981-0023. Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code GREENLIGHT and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Anyways, the Chiefs, I guess the song would be Chiefs Kingdom by Tech Nine, because my son, Luke, listens to it incessantly in the car. The rapper Tech Nine evidently likes the Chiefs and came out with like a Chiefs rap song. Any of you Chiefs fans, check it out. I was going to do Back in Saddle, but I don't like Aerosmith, and that would be 2 Aerosmith songs today.
I'll do The Good Stuff by Kenny Chesney.
This is where the bit loses steam or gets funnier.
Because what they have going right now, that's a warm cup of milk at the end of the bar. All right.
Is that a lyric from that song?
Yeah, when you're,
Wait, Kenny Chesney likes a warm cup of milk at the bar?
the guy goes up to the bar and you think he's going to say, hey, can I get a whiskey drink, a vodka drink,
Yeah.
a lager drink,
Yeah.
but the bartender pours him a glass of milk.
Does he get knocked down?
Because the guy, his wife is going through some cancer treatment or something of that sort,
okay.
Maybe the bartender lost his bride a few years back.
So the milk.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the good stuff.
Okay.
And
all right.
winning titles here in Kansas City. That's also the good stuff.
I could
Welcome Carson Wentz to the fold.
I could see Reed being a big milk drinker. By the way, Carson Wentz still alive, bro. Nolan texted me the other day, look at this guy. I'm thinking he's going to throw a 60-yard bomb. He escapes like 7 preseason bodies to heroically avoid 5 sacks and gain 0 yards. But he looks so athletic doing it. Honestly, this isn't just me. Like, part of this is being funny. But Carson looks young still. Now, he might have camp legs.
It was a clinic on sack evasion only to get sacked.
Yeah, dude. eventual sack. But for 7 to 9 seconds, it looked vintage.
Mhm.
Looked like 2017.
It looked like 2017, kind of looked like 2019 at times. But that's the thing. If Carson's body's still there, I think Andy Reid can turn him into a starting quarterback again. I know people don't want to hear that, but I think Carson might start in the NFL again. You see what happened to Baker Mayfield, right? Do you remember when Baker Mayfield was in LA and we were like, oh, he's hanging out with Sean McVay? The guy was hanging out with Freddie fucking Kitchens. Imagine like hanging out with Freddie Kitchens and then being like, hey, Sean McVay, you're going to learn something he didn't learn before. You know what I mean?
I do.
And it's the same thing with any of these quarterbacks that take this year off. And actually, we had Nick Foles on the show. Nick Foles, at one time, people were probably like, yo, he's dead. He's dead. It doesn't exist. Oh, he exists. He was just playing possum. He was doing the LA, at that time, St. Louis, to KC, to Philly. We call that a route.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing for Carson. Now, I'm not trying to say he's going to end up an Eagle again, but he's doing the rehabilitation stretch that Nick Foles did. It's pretty ironic.
How old do you think he is?
29 years old.
31 years old.
Oh, yeah, because he's old because he was bad in school.
32 this season.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got old fast, like your boy. Bad in school. Had to take 10th grade twice. I'm not stupid. Maybe the school was too hard.
All right, watch this. Watch this. Are you ready?
Yeah. Can we talk about the Chiefs in a second?
18 times 120.
Oh, you're gonna ask me the thing again. 18 times 120. Well, that's easy. 180 plus 20 times 18, which is obviously 180 twice, which is 360. So 360 plus 180 is 540.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That can't be the right answer, though.
Probably not.
Okay. All right. We were off by a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
You are good at that.
I'm in the
though.
middle of the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Here. That was 2 plus 1 is 3. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to win 3 Super Bowls.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So I just want to say, not for nothing, Mahomes has a solid backup. Wentz has a solid backup.
Yeah.
This is officially a Carson Wentz fan podcast. Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I wonder where McKinnon is. I know he's a free agent right now. I don't know if McKinnon's doing the take the camp off thing and he's going to come back to the rescue. Because I kind of wonder when Pacheco, who runs like he's a perpetrator of domestic violence and the ground is 1 in 7 men.
That's surprising statistic.
I mean, fuck it. Leave it. It's true. It's not right. But he runs angry. He runs like he's mad at the ground, right? And he runs hard. And yeah, he's young, but I feel like he's one of those guys that, like, in dog years, he's going to be a lot older than he really is because of his style of play. And when Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the guy in the backfield, and I like the player and everything, but it's just a big drop-off in all the things you can do. That's why last year I get so frustrated when McKinnon wasn't out there in certain situations because of everything he allows you to do. Now, here's the question. If you're worried about who's going to get the carries in between the tackle, what about this guy with the alligator? Have you seen the guy with the alligator?
Carson Steele.
Carson Steele?
Yeah.
He looked good.
Somebody said he looked like Kareem Hunt, and I kind of agree. I think it's easy to do the fullback comparison.
Another free agent running back.
Yeah, right. But prime Kareem Hunt was a motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say this, like, there's no rules here. You know, just because this guy's a fullback who hasn't officially made the team yet doesn't mean he can't play a big role in this offense. I don't know how Andy would use him, but I look at the running back room and I'm like, hey, let's just keep Pacheco healthy if we can, right? Because there were some games where he was dinged last year, late.
Yeah.
Makes you nervous. Rice, Brown, and Worthy. All right?
I'm prepared to zag. I think Xavier Worthy becomes the first fastest receiver in the draft taken that pans out.
Is it a zag? Because it feels like people expect it to work out because it's Patrick Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? I don't get the sense that we're looking at this guy like another.
I feel like you get into that room and you underperform.
Not necessarily. I think that also speaks to how bad that group was last year.
Yeah.
Just how, like, what a funk they were in. I kind of feel like if you get a guy young, you can only do so much with Kadarius Toney, with young Joka. All right. Like
Agreed.
he's worried about his rap career. He's worried about a whole host of social media, whole host of other things before he's worried about lining up on side or catching the ball. These guys are young. You also have to realize they went into this draft and into free agency like, we don't want what happened last year, right? So if they had any concerns about Worthy's hands or his studying or like his work ethic, they probably would have passed on him. This guy can fucking run though, so it makes it difficult. And so can Hollywood Brown. And I will say this: they've upgraded the offensive line. Like we hope. This kid Kingsley Suamatea. I pulled up his profile. Looks like Penei Sewell to me. And before you say, "Hey, that's fucked up," they're related. They look exactly like
They're twins.
I was like, bro, like, is that not Penei Sewell's brother? Holy shit. If he's anything like Penei Sewell. No, but I mean, like, Andy's known to know what's going on the offensive line. And last year, I think it was a hiccup where you thought you were upgrading a tackle. I could have told you they weren't upgrading a tackle. We did tell you that. Donovan Smith was a rough watch at times. And then, like, I think Jawan Taylor, with a year under his belt, he might learn the snap count. I do love the interior of this offensive line. It's what allows them to remain physical, to run the gap scheme stuff they run. Trey Smith, Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, who, by the way, he might be, I told the guys this earlier, find me a richer guy with a traditionally bad body in America. I'm talking about like a plus sized guy he might be the richest big man in the, tackles are big and tall and you're like, they're athletes. This guy, he pulled up Donald Trump.
Well,
he's bankrupt.
Yeah,
isn't he?
I came to mind, but I don't think that's.
But Creed Humphrey is made it sexy to have a mullet and play center and all this stuff. He got paid, man. So I'm psyched. He definitely deserves it. And playing between Smith and Tooney, like, that's a really good course. So they got to run the ball. And the reason they got to run the ball is not just to remain physical, because it suits who they are, it keeps the pressure off Patrick Mahomes. But if you were to ask me what the difference between MVS and Hollywood Brown are, because you kind of want to, okay, you had a fast guy. Here's another fast guy. Probably not a number one, but he's closer to one than MVS was. Here's the difference. He's got a full route tree. You can stick him in the slot. When you're a defensive back and you're flat-footed and you've got Worthy or you've got Hollywood Brown running right at you and you're not sure what's happening, and Andy Reid's got a bunch of window dressing, it might be in the flat, it might be pre-snap, it might be play action. If you're flat-footed against this guys, it's going to be 6.
And
he's got 2 of these guys.
7 might be open.
And we haven't even talked about the best tight end in the game.
Yeah.
Who looked, everybody said he was dead last year, and he fucking cooked the Ravens. So I don't know when Kelsey starts aging and looking older. I know his brother Jason genetically looked fantastic right up into the end, different kind of athlete. But Kelsey and Gray, they were out of sync last year, and I didn't think like they're going to get better value in the screen game. I feel like the explosives are going to be back, and so are the layups, dude. Like they didn't have explosives or layups last year. It was remarkable. Now they've got both. Again, I really believe that the offensive line has to play better. If there is a gaping hole here, it doesn't matter because Spags can create edge pressure. He can create pressure up front. Chris Jones is going to make things hell for people no matter what. He's still Chris Jones. But, he's lined up next to Nandi, who I really like, and the guys flanking him on the outside are Karlaftis and Dana, who – Dana's been tremendous, like the way he's moved around and provided support as an inside rusher and the whole thing. Karlaftis had 10 last year. But let's be serious. There's nobody outside that scares you. They can get around that because Spags does that. Like there's nobody better than Spags in creating pressure without rushers. And you could make an argument that McDonald did a great job of it last year, but he's not in Baltimore anymore. And so I look at these guys and I say, you know what? With Omenahu out, meh, right? Like your noise. But Spags can create pressure, and I think they'll be okay. The thing I worry most about is like what's the linebacker room look like without Willie Gay? That guy had range. Going to be a lot of pressure on Chanel. They like Tranquil, who played a big role for them last year. And then we work backwards, and now the real issue is like, hey, you had 2 guys last year that could just man up and take people away. And you lose one of them. What's that look like? Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson. You know, the way Joshua Williams came up in our Reed interview was that he's got the worst haircut on the team. And when I pulled up his roster picture today, I was like, God damn, that haircut sucks. But if he can cover, they'll be okay. And it might be Jalen Watson, right? And it might be a thing where McDuffie kicks to nickel when they are on the field and nickel looks. And, you know, good safety group, a lot of depth. Reed and Cook, Connor Bush for depth. I mean, like, let's not overcomplicate this thing. They might be more of a team that wins some games 28-26 this year, as they have in the past at times, rather than 17-13. But they're still going to be one of, if not the best team in the league, because they're gunning for 3. They've come this far. It's burned the ships. The magnitude of this run emotionally is going to be crazy. I cannot imagine walking back in the building to try to three-peat. It's movie stuff.
If Mahomes stays healthy, what would happen to have them not be playing in the AFC title game?
The defense struggles, or the tackles are a disaster, worse than last year, and the receivers need more time. You know, like, the reason they were able to win last year is because that defense was nails, and the defense allowed them to struggle at times and overcome it. It's going to be a little bit different this year. I think they're going to be more like the Chiefs you think of when you think of the Chiefs. You know,
schedule alert: Week 1 home Ravens, Week 2 home Bengals. That's fun.
2-0, 2-0.
And
I think the Bengals and the Ravens are going to be very good.
And it doesn't get much more difficult than that the rest of the way.
And they did just add back Juju Smith-Schuster,
which we didn't even mention. That's great. Yeah, like, which tells you something about their depth, right? Like, we say, like, hey, I mean, it's a guy they're bringing back. He knows the system. He knows the QB. It's the devil you know. Hey, if we're going to go pick up a 4th or 5th wide receiver. And also, I will say this. You look at these guys. Rashee Rice is a bigger guy, physical. Worthy's a little skinny-ass rookie. Hollywood Brown's a little-ass guy. I mean, Juju's physical. Like, he'll block. He'll do dirty work. Sky Moore, I don't know. Like, this is a big, important year for him. But Juju, he'll do some dirty work. That's one thing I've always appreciated about him, and I think they know that. You know? So I think it's all about how the defense performs, and I wouldn't bet against Spags to figure this shit out. You know? It's not like he has 5 white linebackers when he was in and he only 2 now. I really got to talk to him about this, because I remember in St. Louis one year I came up to Ken Flagel and I said, hey, Coach, we got too many white linebackers.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Josh Hull. And I was standing next to one of them. I was like, I don't care if it's this guy, but we gotta whittle this thing down a little bit.
Our names are Josh and Chris.
Yeah, like, we were playing Green Bay. You can freeze the frame, and we had 6 white guys in the front. And we were in base defense, albeit I think we had 1 D tackle who was non-white. But I was like, I freeze the frame right here, Coach. I don't know how you expect us to win this game. I don't know what we're going to talk about the rest of this fucking all 22, but, like, it's kind of irrelevant.
Like David Vobora on that roster.
By the way, David Vobora and Danny Amendola are up.
Dude, they're doing
surfing board tides in Alaska.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys. Not that cool. They call them board tides for a reason. They're fucking boring to look at. The Instagram pictures are boring, guys. You didn't invite me. Piece of shit.
Everybody's favorite team to talk about this offseason, the LA Chargers. Is it now or is it sometime in the future? Plus 375 to win this division. Here's a song for you.
Edmund Fitzgerald, the wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald, dude.
Living in Fast Forward by Kenny Chesney.
Because you think they're going to be fast?
I think the future is now for the LA Chargers.
So you talked about fantasy earlier. I found this actually on Reddit. People were freaking out about this, but, like, Do not draft. I have DND in fantasy. Don't draft any of these guys. Not even Lab McConkey. Harbaugh rush attempts top 10 in all 4 of his years in San Francisco, obviously, but pass attempts 29, 31, 31, 32.
Wow.
And if you looked at Greg Roman, it was just more of the same when he wasn't with Harbaugh. It wasn't like, oh, I'm leaving Jim, we can run our offense differently. Like when Roman was asked about Herbert thus far, and I'm paraphrasing, this is a quote that Nolan pulled, where he said, like, basically, in our evaluation of Herbert's game, it's been impressive to see what he's done in a system without the foundation of a run game, which is basically to take shots at the last fucking administration and say, hey, man, this was like malpractice. Every team should, if you're Greg Roman, every team should have a run game. And, you know, they've been doing it without that. And now the question is, how much are they going to run the ball? Like, they're going to take a sports car that everybody wants to drive fast, and they're going to drive it slow. And I'm okay with that. Get this shit together. Don't ruin Justin Herbert. He's been on the brink of being ruined at times. Run the football. You got curb stomped by the Vegas Raiders. That should tell you day one of camp and day one of the hiring process. Like, who should we hire? Should we hire a little offensive guru, or should we hire a guy that wears like khakis and flips sleds on their sides after practice? You know, drinks milk like Kenny Chesney.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of guy we want in here. I'm not going to forget what they did to us in Vegas at the end of that season. If I was this team, when I start pounding the lighter on the table, I'm getting mad for those guys, the way they got punked. And I just, what could bring you together more than getting your ass kicked by 40 points to division rival?
A broken elevator.
Exactly. That's a shared experience that brought them close together. I just missed it being on that elevator. He's basically Waylon Jennings on the plane with Buddy Holly.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, wish I could have been there with those guys, but Justin Herbert was. Justin Herbert, his hair was a little wet, but his shirt was completely dry, Harbaugh said. That was another thing that blew me away. The guy is just a beast. What? You get in those situations as a test of wills. I was proud of each of the guys and the 2 women that were there on the elevator. That's a win. You feel good about yourself. You were challenged. It was a test of will, and you put it down or you pull it in. It was a camaraderie amongst that group that is even stronger than it was before. Harbaugh even used his family motto to describe the situation. Who's got it better than the guys that were on that elevator? Print the patches, man. I don't know what kind of patch you got to put on somebody, but like, never forget, bro.
2 hours is a long time.
Was it 2 hours?
It's 2 hours.
Big Cat had a theory that Harbaugh might have been responsible for the elevator malfunction
to test them.
Mm-hmm.
That's very Big Cat. It is. That's brilliant.
But you're with your friends. 2 hours with strangers would have been a real test.
He wouldn't have trapped 2 women in there.
It's
that's why it wasn't an inside job.
kind of light work.
Yeah, it's light work with your friends.
Yeah.
Probably a nice elevator. Coach, I was once trapped on an elevator in Hawaii, actually, for 35, 40 minutes with my mom. I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about a challenge?
Dramatic.
Right. They need to do like an outside the lines on me. Honestly, it's up there with a guy growing up with like no roof on his house.
So after really digging into this
The elevator,
this depth chart,
they're not going to be good.
I think we're a year away.
Yeah, we're a year away.
Yeah.
I mean, like, listen. Yeah. And, you know, I had to do the fucking rehearsal the other day for Inside the NFL. And, you know, we're going through a mock situation and we're talking about maybe, you know, like something you're excited to see. And I picked the Chargers because I'm just excited to see the chaos that's going to ensue. The quotes, the Justin Herbert, the chargering,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, or the not chargering.
Mm-hmm.
If they figure out a way not to charger, I feel like people are going to be bored. And I swear to you, the whole room looked at me like, why the fucking Chargers, man? And now I know, you know, because I like really looked at their roster,
Yeah.
right? Like I was excited about the coach and the quarterback, but like when you look at the roster, it's going to be a work in progress. And I listen, what they need, this team reads, I'm not saying they're not going to be a tough out at times. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they win 9 games. Really, because of this division and because of the quarterback, right? But they're gonna try to shorten games. You know what I mean? Like that's what they're gonna do. And had Harbaugh not been dealing with what he was dealing with in Michigan, I don't know if this is the roster that's pulling him to the NFL.
Lad McConkey at wide
Right.
receiver 1.
Well, they made a decision, and I actually think it might work out, right? Because when the Bengals did that, when the Bengals were like, "Hey, we're gonna choose," they did the opposite. There was the big, "Hey, you're gonna get Joe Burrow killed. Why did you not draft Penei Sewell?" And the Lions were like, "We'll take the big guy," and they were like, well, "Fine, we'll take the skill guy."
Yep.
This year, the Chargers were like, "We'll take the big guy." No surprise, okay? And I actually think it's the right move. But if McConkey plays like a top 10 pick,
I do like him.
and that's the thing, if they nailed the first round, they could be good right now.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean like tough to beat at time. It's the NFL. Every week somebody's tough to beat. To put them in that 500 or above range, maybe pushing for a wild card spot or that sort of thing, or making the Chiefs sweat. Like this roster, they have to hit those first round picks because number one, fucking Herbert's got to be upright. Number two, he's got to have somebody to throw to. Okay.
Yeah.
Bing, bang, boom, right there in the first round. Okay. Because otherwise, it's like Josh Palmer, DJ Shark, Quentin Johnson,
line,
Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst. So it's not an exciting group, but they're not going to throw the ball much anyways.
They're going to hand it off to the 2021 Baltimore Ravens,
who might be injured half the time, dude. It's crazy. It's like Edwards and could I get Justice Hill?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just saying. The one thing I was worried about was Justin Herbert's foot. Like I feel like we asked somebody about this last week in some capacity. I don't know who we had on the show, but I was like, "Oh, it's Foles," and I was like, "You worry about a foot injury with a guy, and those can linger." But according to Dan Fouts, who was on the elevator, he said his foot's fine. He said he learned it on the elevator.
Dan
Justin
Fouts,
Herbert.
dead or alive?
Probably dead, since you're asking.
Alive.
Okay.
He was just on the elevator.
I was like, how did I fuck this up? Guy was on the elevator.
Yeah.
Close to not alive, though.
Right.
That was a hairy situation.
Right.
So I just say, hey, Slater, we like him. We like Johnson. We like Bozeman. The right side of the line, if Joe Alt can play, you can cover for one guard who you're not sure about. Or if there's an injury. If you've got two good tackles, I feel pretty good about that. And they went the opposite of what Cincinnati did. You know, they go big guy, and then they get Ladd late in the first, and maybe they get But this is where it's interesting. On defense, if you look at their base defense, their front three, Fox, Otito Ogbania, he's played 15 games in the NFL. Poona Ford, disappointing year in Buffalo, healthy scratch multiple games. You're like, But then you look at their outside backer types, and you're like, you know, they really do have
Bosa.
a fun group if everybody can stay healthy. Bosa and Mack, Tui Pelotu, who's rushed really well inside. We highlighted him last year.
USC.
Look at their NASCAR package. Bud Dupree, we haven't even mentioned, who reminds me of like an Ahmad Brooks, who he had in San Francisco. You think about, like, I guarantee you Harbaugh is comparing his team to the team in San Francisco. And I'd be interested to think, like, who are the guys that I will, like, who's my Ray McDonald? You know, who's my Mike Iupati? Like, he's probably in there talking. But I know who his Ahmad Brooks can be is Bud Dupree. This outside backer group is a lot of fun. And if they can get to third and long, they might be tough to deal with, because it's almost like I look at the secondary and I say, this is a group that stunk it up last year. Like, they've actually got some decent players. Obviously, Christian Fulton's a big deal. How's this for a name? You like Alohi Gilman? At safety?
Yeah.
That's the all-name team.
Yeah.
It's really a fusion of the two languages.
Yeah, it is.
You really think about that, it's crazy. But Alohi Gilman, you got Derwin James, Jasir Taylor's going to be probably the relative weakness, I guess. Nolan, would you say, in that secondary?
Yeah, a little unproven.
Little unproven,
We're bearing the lead. They have Robert Kennedy.
He's going to have a whale of a year.
Yeah.
Whale juice?
Yeah, put your plastic bags on.
Holy shit, bro. That's like a pretty funny indie comedy scene.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine when they play the Bears.
Come on, let's not act like that's a little bit, like, weird, but, like, funny too.
Oh, it's hilarious.
It's like, I know the objective is we're not supposed to like the guy and everything, and the bear thing was weird, and yeah, he's a fucking weirdo, but guy also was like, we got to save this whale head. And he put fucking plastic bags on his kid.
Yeah.
The description of that situation was the most hilarious thing. He said we were driving down the road, people were giving us the finger.
Yeah.
We had a whale head on top of the sedan. There's whale juice coming into the cracks. Like, I hope Robert Kennedy has a great year on.
Yeah.
I don't know how we get out of this thing, but I will say this. I like Perryman. I think he's a tone setter. Listen, this team's going to be better than the sum of their parts because I believe in Harbaugh, and I believe in the physicality that they're going to play with. I really do. It's all going to come down to those first-round picks. Are they going to be competitive this year or not? If the guys are ready this year, they can be competitive. If they're not ready, it's going to be a long year. I hate to boil it down to just that. There's a lot more going on, but those 2 draft picks, if you can nail those 2, the clock starts now.
I did not realize Khalil Mack had his highest career sacks last year, 17.
And that just goes to show, like, people just decide who they think the best players in the league are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really about stats. They just decide. Mack was like an afterthought when you talk about any of the best rushers in the league, but he was one of the most productive.
Chargers start with the Raiders and the Panthers. So here's a little boost.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
There you go.
So they start with the Raiders, and I'm going to take the Chargers.
Smart.
I mean, fuck, dude. Jim Harbaugh is going to be mad for them. He's going to be like, can you believe the way they bitched you, men? How did you face your wives? Like, hold on, coach. Like, your children should be embarrassed. You're all pussies. You know, like, that's going to be the pregame speech. And I don't blame him because that tape was terrible. And if I were Jim Harbaugh the day one, I'd be like, I'd have that shit running in the hallway. I'd have just footage of that game, the fourth quarter of that game running in the fucking hallway. Oh, you want to see what time it is? You want to know what the schedule is? You got to look up and over that 36-inch monitor that's got you getting embarrassed on national TV on loop. That was terrible.
I think we may be able to run the table in week 1.
Just as a
BetMGM's going to regret this partnership.
I know, right? They're going to be hemorrhaging
We go
cash.
16-0 in week 1.
Arizona, Buffalo. I got Buffalo.
Minus.
Should we
6.
save it?
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
save it.
Okay. It's a tough one here, though. Atlanta, Pittsburgh.
Falcons are favored by 3 at home.
I'm going to take Pittsburgh out the gate. It just feels like that's what you're supposed to do in that situation. Anyways, we'll get back to that.
We'll buy a half point there.
All right. The Raiders. Their layup line song is "Baby Come Back" because it's just a team that wants Tom Brady to come out of retirement. Really, it is. And Tom's doing all these damn videos where he's like, he throws the ball and he's like, yeah, I'm still hot and can throw the ball. You guys see that? Like, I'm like, all right, Tom, we get it, bro. You could come back if you wanted to come back.
He's out here dunking.
Oh, the dunking thing's incredible.
Legitimately impressive.
That's incredible. I looked for 5 minutes in an effort to poke holes in whatever he just did, and I was like, no, it's 10-foot rim.
Yeah.
Maybe some use of steroids again. But for a 45-year-old man to be able to take a white 45-year-old man to be able to take off like that. By the way, Tom, Josh McCown can still dunk. Confirmed last week. I asked him in the hallway. You got nothing on Josh McCown, bro. All right, so Raiders, like I said, the Brady thing's been funny. Would he come back?
Nope.
No. Why? If you're Tom Brady, why come back and play for the Raiders? I don't even know what the deal is with that ownership thing is. Like, if there's a workaround there. Does anybody know?
He'd have to give up, like, I think most of his ownership right now. Like, he could get it back later.
Which he could do pretty easily.
Yeah.
He's not doing too bad. Well, Bitcoin got a lot of people over the last couple of years, but he's got a lot in the coffers. You know what I mean? So I don't think we're going to see Tom Brady. I don't think he's walking through that door. I think what you got is the $25 million man, Gardner Minshew. He got his payday. And here's what's wild about the Raiders to me, mate, is they were sitting at 13. They had all those good quarterbacks come off the ball. We'll see if they're good. Quarterbacks come off the board before they got to 13. And I know they wanted, I mean, it was no secret they wanted Jaden Daniels, right? Like with the Arizona State connection, the whole thing. They were never going to have a shot at Jaden Daniels, but what Antonio Pierce had to do to retain the job played them out of quarterback contention. And it makes his job that much harder this year. I would say, though, Gardner Minshew plays pretty good ball when he's asked to in these situations. I mean, last year, for sure. In the past, mixed bag. But I think it's ironic to me that exactly what you had to do to keep the job is what puts you in this situation. They finished 8-9. If they'd have gone 7-10 and just been like, yeah, we won't beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead. It's a lot of fun to beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead and rub their nose in it and send a message, or to rub the Raiders' nose in it. But let's say you won one less game, because they were on a roll when Antonio took over. It was the Giants game you pointed out. That was the first one.
30-6.
30-6. It was on the wrong side of that. I'm supposed to know before I give a lockout that the interim head coach is coming in. That's why I remember. All right. So they finished 8-9. At 7-10, the Falcons got pick 8. At 6-11, the Titans had the 7th pick. I mean, Penix, McCarthy, Nix. Not that I'm saying any of these guys are going to necessarily pan out, but like, that kind of sucks. Or maybe it doesn't.
Next year, you're looking at Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. Who knows?
Shedeur Sanders after they trade Devontae Adams at the deadline. 2? We talked about this earlier.
Yeah. To who?
Okay.
Commies.
The Commies were one team I liked, but a better point, Nolan, you made was
current league leaders in cap space, San Francisco 49ers.
I mean, think about it. If the Ayuk thing doesn't work out and they want to make – but the problem with Antonio Pierce doing this is still a guy who knows that he has a shorter leash than other coaches. Fair or unfair. It's fucked up, but you get the interim head coach thing. Even though they made the move and hired him, like, are they going to give him the leeway that they might give somebody else? So in his opinion, what's the most prudent thing to do? Is it to ride it out and try to win as many games as possible, keep the vibes going? Or is it to deal the guy who's supposed to make $36 million in 25 and 26? Like, he's going to be 33 and 34 years old. So Telesco, not his guy, not saying everybody doesn't love Devontae Adams, but new guy gets there and he's like, fuck, dude, I need to parlay this into something. And San Francisco would be pretty keen on adding somebody like that, even at this age, because their window's wide open. The Commanders, to me, is like, hey, if we get to the deadline and we don't have another guy outside of McLaurin who's really playing well, they just sold Dotson up to Philly. They might say, hey, fuck, dude, like, let's try to win the division. Let's try to win a division over the next 2 years. If we're not that far back and Daniels looks like a guy, like, maybe they do that. There's a few teams that I would look at. And if I were the Raiders, not knowing anything about what's being talked about behind closed doors, if I were Antonio Pierce, I might say, hey, yeah, I'd love to be even worse the second half of the season. Honestly worse. Like, not in a way where we're tanking, but, like, it's really hard to find a receiver to throw the ball to. Like, Jacoby Myers is not going to win us games. Nice player. The backfield is Zamir White and Alexander Madison. All right. This team, unless they got the best 12 personnel of all time, and Mayer and Brock Bowers, Stanford Steve's favorite formation
ever
of all time, Raiders in 12 personnel. If they're like the best ever at doing that and Gardner Minshew plays out of his mind, they might be decent. But likely they're going to look up halfway through the season and be like, what are we doing? And what are we doing to Devontae Adams, too? Because I do feel for that guy. He made the decision he made. I get it. You fans at home don't like hearing that shit. Fuck him. He makes a lot of money. The guy took a chance and it blew up. And the Raiders changed course at quarterback. Like, Jimmy G damn near had that guy on the roof of the Sphere. And so I look at him and I'm like, if I'm Devontae Adams, I kind of want out. And if I'm the Raiders, I might want to recoup some draft capital, get worse, and draft Shedeur Sanders. With Gardner Minshew on what, a 2-year deal? 2-year deal. He can help bring Shedeur Sanders along.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not saying punt on the season. I mean no disrespect to a very good defense. And they're going to be the type of team that if they listen to this, if the Raiders were sitting here listening to us talk or gave a shit what we said, they'd probably play better because it's another chip on Max Crosby's shoulder, or another chip on Christian Wilkins' shoulder, or that defense, man. I think they're going to be a lot better. When Jack Jones got there, the immediate impact of having a corner like that Antonio Pierce was able to be like, hey, I know you've been thought of as a dickhead some other places, but I know you. Like, I was with you at Arizona State, and having that unique player-coach relationship to bring him along. Kuntz came on. You got a guy like Max Crosby, you can build a wall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and they might be a bit of a project in 2025.
Yeah, the offense might be a project in 2025.
Yeah.
But if you're Max, you can build a wall. So, I mean, like, listen, I think they're a really good defense that could play good enough to keep them in a lot of games. Like, who's the last impactful Raiders interior rusher? Christian Wilkins is going to be fun to watch. And it feels like they'll try to live in nickel, keep Masterson off the field. No offense, brother. Try to play fast, and the safety group's not great. So they're I'm not saying they're the fucking the 2000 Ravens or whatever it is, but they've got some competitive guys on defense. And this team's going to play the way that attitude that they had is going to keep them from being 2-15. They're not going to be that type of team. Unless you sell Devontae Adams and you realize halfway through the season that you absolutely have to be 2-15.
You start at Chargers at Ravens. So
1-1.
Really?
No, I'm joking. I'm taking the Chargers.
Okay.
I'm not going back on what I said 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
They're going to beat the Ravens.
Will they finish ahead of the Denver Broncos in the AFC West?
I don't think so. I'm going to root for them to finish as high as they possibly. This is the hard part. Like, picking this division is going to suck next week because I like Sean Payton. I might bet the Broncos over. We'll get to that in a second. The Raiders, I'm damn sure rooting for Antonio Pierce. A lot of fun. And who doesn't want to see happy Jim Harbaugh? So it's hard to say who's going to be. But I don't know, Nolan, to you, just looking at the rosters, I think I trust the Broncos more, and they have less splash players.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think that Bo Nix, it's been a good preseason for him, and I think there's a lot to work with around him. I defer to Cowboy there with his breakdown, but they're going to be able to run the rock. They have options to distribute the ball, and I like the O-line.
Yeah, the O-line, we were looking at the O-line, and we were like, damn, this is kind of a good group. Like, there was a lot of like, this guy fucking Quinn Miners, Ben Powers, if he'd come on, he's better in Baltimore, but it's still early for him there. Bowles is a guy I'd love to see him cash in on all that anguish over the last 8-10 years. I think the question with the Broncos is like, is Bo Nix a real guy?
And center is a big, like Wattenberg stepping in for Lloyd Cushenberry, who went to Tennessee.
Yep.
You're losing a guy who, made your calls and is the, heart of that offensive line. So is Bo Nix going to be able to do everything he needs to do as a quarterback with a brand new starting center as well?
Yeah, the question mark's probably center, right? Like you talked about, McGlinchey's got to play a little better, right? They're asking a lot of him. With a big deal and everything. There's a lot of pressure on him. But Sutton, Tim Patrick in one piece.
Well, Tim Patrick,
Josh Reynolds.
They just announced they're exploring trades for Tim Patrick and Samaje Perine. So Tim Patrick battled back from admirably from injuries the last couple seasons, and now
for him.
He might be on another team.
That's going to be a tough one because you lose Justin Simmons on defense, like another fan favorite that like every time I see him get hurt, like you're like gutted about it, is Tim Patrick, who's shown flashes of putting this really good career together and he just can't stay healthy. The interesting one is Perine, who's one of my favorite like second or third backs in the league, is on the trade block, and that means they like Jaleel McLaughlin a lot. And that was the word, like Peter Schrager's been talking about how great this guy is.
And he played great in a couple spots last year when Javonte Williams wasn't as effective.
But that when the camp buzz picks up, that means the guys in the building are talking to people like Peter or myself or guys that are in there in the building. And you'll know, like, we'll go into Green Bay and you'll hear a name and you're like, or Justin Jefferson names a guy. He called him Speedy at the end of the interview. And I'm like, okay, he's going to have a good year. They're either going to feature him more or you're seeing something in camp. And I feel like this guy, McLaughlin, taking the next step allowing them to move Pirine if that's what they choose to do. I don't know who would be in the market for Pirine, but I really like the guy. Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, we talked Josh Reynolds, Lil Jordan Humphrey,
Pretty big.
Mims Jr. Ironically, he's fucking huge, Macon. When he used to walk into class and you had to introduce yourself, they were like, shut the fuck up, dude. There's no way that's your name. But we like the offensive line. Listen, it all comes down to Bo Nix. A lot of easy throws in preseason, but part of it is like play extension, and part of it is like he's an older guy, right? I think that's kind of a positive, right? You're looking for a guy that's mature. He's going to start day one.
He's had, I think in his 5 college seasons, he had 5 offensive coordinators. So
Yeah.
he's seen just about everything. He's been through everything.
And now he's got a whiz,
And he's got a whiz.
right? You know, and
He didn't face any starters in the preseason. That's like
3-0 though, Cowboy.
No
yeah,
question.
It's the preseason.
3-0.
No question. That's why I want to pump the brakes. And say,
Exactly.
like, hey, maybe he's not going to be, but we just need him to be a guy,
Right.
right? Like if he can be a guy, the Broncos could compete in some games this year, and I don't know that they'll finish last. Now that's not like great consolation for Broncos fans, but you'll be moving in the right direction.
Improvement. We just want improvement.
That's exactly right. And you look at their defense. Listen, John Franklin Myers is an exciting pickup, and I can't wait to see him play a little bit more full time. But you got Browning, Cooper, and Benito outside. Like there's a lot of if this happens, but if it happens, those edge guys are okay to me. Like you can get home with that group if they just take the steps, man. Like these are young players. They flashed. Surtain makes everything easier. You know, you got a guy like that, he makes everything easier.
It's going to make the Justin Simmons loss hurt that, slightly less.
Mhm.
Brandon Jones coming over from Miami, but still like the leadership on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be missed.
That's big, right? And so the defense is a mixed bag. I don't know what to expect, but I do know that if you talk about like a rookie quarterback having a head coach with him, like I don't know if I put too many guys ahead of Sean Payton and the way I imagine that relationship going, especially when Sean likes you. Sean talked about how much he liked Bo Nix coming out, and like usually you wait until you miss a guy and he plays well on another team and you're like, I really like that guy. But for a coach to be like, hey, I really like the guy and I have for a while, the guy we drafted, like you're not hedging your bets, you're saying you like the guy. And so I'm looking forward to seeing those two work.
And look
together.
what he did with old Zach Wilson in the last preseason game. Zach
Yeah.
Wilson was looking
I'm
prime
telling
BYU.
you, dude.
15 to 25.
He was building him
251.
up pretty good.
2 tuds.
Don't sleep on this man coming out and looking good for 10 minutes at some point this season.
Okay.
You know? Well, I don't want to just do the thing where every guy that goes to New York to play for the Jets and leaves, I'm like, this guy could still be good. I really feel that way about
We
Darnold.
did talk about Christian Hackenberg on the show the other day.
I don't think he's coming back.
No, I know.
But no, I just wanted to be clear. But Zach Wilson's got elite arm talent. Okay, what that means, I mean, it's like saying that receiver that didn't pan out is fast. More often than not, like you realize maybe this guy's missing some of the football DNA, like the processing or the decision making, or is a little too aggressive. You know, doesn't like to stay away from the pitfalls, so to speak. That's hard to change. But you can coach a guy up to have better habits, and we'll see. Like I'm kind of excited to see Sean working with this group. And again, everybody last year who was like, Broncos, you guys are assholes for benching Russell Wilson, the whole thing. Like I don't want to open up a can of worms again. But like, is he lighting it on fire in Pittsburgh?
DVD.
I think we're all just happy to be past that chapter in Denver, I would imagine. Right?
Very excited to be done. There's an account, and no hate to Russell Wilson, but there's an account posting Russell Wilson lowlights once a day until the start of the Steelers season.
That Seattle team was so fucking good.
Yeah.
He was really good, but that Seattle team was really fucking good.
Do you have a layup line for the Broncos?
Yeah.
Sure do. Better as a memory,
Kenny Chesney.
like Kenny Chesney. You know, I do like the new unis, Reed. They're growing on me, but the Broncos are better when we're thinking about late night.
As of right
John
now.
Elway.
Yeah.
You know?
As of right now.
Yeah.
Give us week 10 and we might be what's a Right Now song by Kenny Chesney?
I kind of like the song
Poppin'
Rock
right-
Bottom.
Rock
by Kenny Chesney.
okay.
Kenny Chesney, good.
Mhm.
That's good, Chris.
Mhm. When I poop in the potty? All right.
Maybe Summertime by Kenny Chesney, because that's the only time they're going to be 3-0 at any point. You know what I'm saying?
All right, everybody. That concludes our big preview show, AFC South and West. If you are a fan of an AFC North or East team, come back Friday. But even if you're not, just come back.
Yeah, come on back.